Hello there beautiful, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today? My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now we don't actually have an event to talk about with this video, but we do, thanks to the synergy event or synergy characters in Kane's event, know or at least have a good idea of what's coming this Friday with this holiday event, and it's likely to feature one of my favourite characters in the entirety of Dissidia Opera Omnia, not that there aren't like 50 of those. But from my favourite Final Fantasy as well, which is Final Fantasy V, we should be seeing our favourite pink lady in Lenna. Now, Lenna brings some very, very powerful stuff along, and we're just going to be talking about Lenna and the banner that she comes on today. So if you're interested in all of that, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Before we get started, of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links down in the description box below. Over on Twitch, I've been streaming a lot of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, and I have to say, this game, I've not finished with the story or anything yet, but from what I've played, and I've played a lot of it, it's honestly elevated Final Fantasy XIV to being probably one of, if not my favourite game ever made. And, you know, I talk about FF5 being my favourite Final Fantasy and FF9, but 14's definitely picking it up for me, so it'd be lovely to see you guys come over and find me on Twitch to come and watch some of my Final Fantasy XIV stuff. And I do talk about making 14 content a lot on this channel, but honestly I get really nervous to make it. But at this point I'm just wanting to make content for a game that I really love, so I hope that when that starts to come around you guys will enjoy that too. Over on Patreon, I do always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a brand new video, and today that person is going to be Kieran, who is brand new to my Patreon, so a massive thank you goes out to that. And they have Tidus on their title card, who's not been featured very much on my Patreon title cards, I have to say. Like, I'm shocked that more people don't pick Tidus, so I guess it's nice to see more love for him going out from you there, Kieran, so thank you very much for that. And of course, lastly, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, with special mentions going over to Leo, Bob and Midiu for their translations over on Reddit, Tom Redroop for their fabulous infographics, Dissidia DB, Info and Compendium.com, because these are all websites that we use on this channel, and therefore you should too. So now let's move on and take a look at the banner itself and what kind of things we could expect when it comes to this banner that we're getting with Lenna on Friday. So this is the JP version of the banner, which will feature Lenna and Trey and their LDs. And given the fact that Lenna and Trey are both synergy characters for Kane's Intersecting Wills event, despite the fact that they're not actually in the event, suggests that we're probably going to see the same, if not a very similar banner to this one. So Lenna and Trey, full LD EX kits, and also instead of Ject's BT here, it will be Caius's, because that's the event that the banner sort of BT character that we're going through at the moment, so we expect to see Caius as the main change here. So if you've not used Lenna before, Lenna is honestly one of my favourite characters in this game because of just how much she packs in to just a small kit and like one buff across the party. She does a lot, and her LD makes a much even greater deal. So her two skills, Rapid Fire and Windrake Arrow, like a lot of the FF5 characters, you have to use the ability once to then get to the plus versions of their attacks, which are the ones that you're realistically wanting to be using. But your first skill use is free anyway, and instant turn rate, so at least you get that off the bat from her EX. Rapid Fire is a AoE Brave HP attack that really didn't hit very hard, and the potency on it still isn't particularly high, but it's been reworked now to do 3 HP dumps that do full HP damage for each one. So there are situations where this can actually do a lot of damage pretty heavily, but there is another attack you're probably going to be using pretty frequently instead of this one. And then Windrake Arrow is there primarily to set up her primary buff, which is Windrake's Arrow, which gives you HP regen, Brave regen, and more importantly, 100% debuff evasion as long as you're using the plus version of the attack. So really, that free skill should be going on Windrake Arrow. There's a lot there. It's the only buff that she puts on her party members. It doesn't last a huge amount of time, but for that period of time, you can find that 100% debuff evasion, along with a large HP and Brave regen, and Brave regen is a big part of Elena's kit anyway. It does a lot of work, and now it's been reworked as well, so she gets more uses of it, so she's able to reapply it more frequently. She also gets Brave recovery on it, so it hits harder, 50% splash damage, and heals or like on top of it, so she's now able to heal more with that. So her EX gives her another buff, which is the Brave Phoenix of Tycoon, which is initial bravery and more brave regen. So this is realistically the only reason you're going to be using this is to refresh the buff, because it's not a particularly strong attack at this point in time. It's a 6-hit AoE brave HP attack that does split damage. So realistically, you're not going to be using this except to regain the buff for Princess of Tycoon. Giant's Drink and Dragon's Breath. Now this is a very unique attack, and I love it from a flavour standpoint because it draws from the Chemist role from Final Fantasy V, and Chemist is really busted in FF5 because of the combination of different things you can make, and that comes through here. So basically, instead of dealing damage based on your bravery, this deals damage based on your party's HP. So you have a buff on which increases your max HP by 30% for your party thanks to Giant's Drink and Dragon's Breath, that it doesn't consume bravery for Lenna. You get an AoE 100%, 150% of your party's current HP total 3 times, and then you get an HP attack transformation into Dragon's Breath, so the same attack again, but 3 charges, and you can actually use the LD multiple times to add those charges on so that you get more of them. There is no maximum for these, so you could just keep doing it, and but you probably want to spread them out anyway because the buff you get from this is also amazing. So you have this really powerful attack that doesn't care about Lufenia plus reductions, doesn't care about your current bravery, is completely safe for Lenna to use because it doesn't consume her bravery, and you could just use this over and over again. Obviously you have a limited number of uses of this because in combination of the fact that you get 3 uses of this particular ability and then 3 uses of the Dragon's Breath after it, you'll get a total of 12 uses of Dragon's Breath. So, like I said, you get an HP transfer, your HP plus transforms into Dragon's Breath, which is the same attack again. What you don't get from the HP plus variant, that you do get from this though, is the Giant's Drink buff. So, as I said, party max HP up by 30%. Really useful, in combination with the fact that she has big HP regens, big heals, she has the Winddrake's Ward, lovely defensive buffs there. But, as long as your party has over 50% HP or more, you're getting Brave HP damage up by 50% and HP damage up by 30%. That's a lot. You get some overflow as well, but that is a lot. She doesn't have Brave gains up, sure. But if you're sticking her in a party with Brave shaving characters, she's gonna go off. Like, there's a lot to do there. She doesn't care about whether they're battering her either, because a lot of her damage comes from her HP, and those defensive buffs are great. Her attack aura could be a little bit better, so just pair her up with somebody that is self-sufficient for their damage. Any burst character will do here. And you get a lot out of her. Like I said, 50% and 30%, and the defensive buffs, and the fact that she only takes up 1 buff slot on your party thanks to Winddrake's Ward, and the fact that she gives you all this HP regens, brave regens out of the backside, and a lot of it is down to an aura on her. The only brave regen that you don't get from that is going to come from the Winddrake's arrow, because that is a buff, so turn hoggers beware of that. But honestly, I think it all adds up to an extremely potent kit that I think is going to be relevant for quite some time. When it comes to call abilities, there's some niceness that comes with Lenna's call abilities as well, but I wouldn't say they were absolutely backbreaking, mandatory, you have to have them, because there's a lot of characters that can buff Brave and HP damage through their call abilities now, so it's not necessarily mandatory. However, you get Winddrake's Ward off of her regular call, which is not the plus version of it, so it's not 100% debuff evasion, so do be careful of that. But you get some healing out of it, you get a bit of damage, and you get to keep hold of that. And then Giant's Drink and Dragon's Breath being a call ability, you get HP damage up and Brave damage up by 20% and 30% respectively, which is still a good amount though for your party. So you could put this on a character that's not taking a lot of turns up to increase your party's damage output, so your Barts in your Sid Mal Barts comps or anything like that. But honestly, if you're using your likes of Kate Sith or anything like that, you're probably going to continue to stick with that rather than using Lenna, but it is still very good. When it comes to her high armor, she has Encouragement Keystone on her regular Lufenia armor, and then she gives a 5% brave damage increase to the party and a 15% maximum bravery cap to the party, so it's party-wide as well, and in good numbers. it's just like if you like brave shaving characters that hit really hard already, you're gonna like Lenna. There's a lot that she's gonna do very well with. She's like, if you like brave game compositions more, you can still use Lenna, but bear in mind that she doesn't have brave gain ups in her kit. So somebody like Maria or Porum, etc., they're not necessarily going to pair up with Lenna in the same way that she would with other characters. But I think that the versatility of Lenna and the various different things that she provides in such a consolidated form is worthy of your attention regardless. So because of the fact that we don't have an event here, we're basically just going to go straight into the would you pull section of the video, which is of course the section where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why that might be the case. So with Lenna and Trey's banner, see, forgive me for the fact that I haven't even looked at Trey. Like, Trey's still a solid character, but he is definitely very much the secondary prize on this banner, trust me. 33% of people said they were going to go all in with gems here, 59% of people said they were going to use 100 or more tickets, 4% said less than 100 tickets, and 4% said no thank you. And the only reason that I could think that, like, we didn't get any comments from the people who said less, to be honest, was that they didn't have the resources, or that they were waiting for her return, because when she comes back with Laguna LD and BET, which are also very, very powerful weapons in that era of the game as well. I actually voted 100 or more tickets, believe it or not, because the fact that I have Caius's BT already, I'm still umming and ahhing about it, like, because I will not walk away without Lenna's LD, like, that just isn't going to happen. So really, I should just go in and use gems. But I feel that if I can manage to walk away, fortunately, I'm willing to take that risk so that I can give myself more of a buffer going forward, because I don't plan on pulling very much in the near future, and I am at ticket cap already, so they're literally just going to sit in my box for ages. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think of that. Anyways, let's go into some of the comments. So, Luca Yasha says, I'll probably be going gems here for Lenna LD and hopefully a Caius BT. Originally, I was willing to wait for a return with Laguna BT, though I think I'd prefer to get Caius BT now. I remember using Lenna back in the Chaos era where I could avoid some pretty nasty debuffs as well as the regen she provided. She made some fights then much more bearable. Now with her increase in damage, while still offering a healing and debuff immunity, hopefully she'll bring me the same for Lufenia Plus. I mean, her increase in damage is a lot. Like, not even just for the party, but for herself as well. Dragon's Breath hits really hard, and like I said, is completely just, it doesn't care about any of the mechanics going on in the fight unless it's like a max HP reduction. It's one of those ones that circumvents the rules slightly by drawing from a different resource than Bravery. So I think it's just a really interesting attack. And honestly, I've used Lenna and liked Lenna every time she's come out since the beginning of the game. When her 35 came out, I loved her. When her EX came out, I loved her. When her EX Plus came out, I loved her. And now that her LD's coming out, I'm going to love her all over again, and I just know it. Keller says, in all seriousness, yes, I'm gem pulling for Lenna. 50% party brave damage up and 30% party HP damage up is huge. She's not mandatory, and with the content coming up, Lenna will overkill most Lufenia pluses. But she just makes life so much easier, so I'd like to maximise my use of her kit. If you don't have the resources now, she comes back with Laguna LDBT and a sweet C90 upgrade and does great work even in the latest content and JP. See, this is why I like her. Like, for the longest time after her EX and her EX Plus came out, she just stuck around. I think, honestly, Lenna is one of the most consistently strong characters the game has in terms of their history. She's just really good. And the fact that she, like, getting her LD now means that she'll be usable now for a long period of time. And then again, when her upgrade comes around, I'm here for it. Kira says, very excited for Lenna. I'll be definitely pulling with gems and pity if I must. The aura she brings to the groom are unmatched. Her LD buff is basically a free BT effect, better than some, such as Arden even. So I think that, yeah, there's a lot to like about her. There just is. Like, I can't even fault that. Like, just 50% brave, 30% HP damage. It's a lot. And then, you know, all the regens. Like, I mean, I gush over Lenna, so there may be an element of favoritism for me personally. And I find it interesting that despite the fact that the votes, like, swung in favor of a large number of tickets instead of gems, the vast majority of the comments that I got were to say that they were going to use gems. For example, Neku here says, gems here. Thanks to the lack of info due to not knowing if her banner was coming, when and where, I kept my gems solely for her. She has good regen, damage increase, debuff affinity, and overall makes your life easier in terms of Lufenia Plus. Plus, she has a bright future with her C90, and thanks to the foresight in regards to FR weapons, pulling her dupes in a future banner doesn't feel as bad as it used to, because these resources have increased on importance to have at hand. I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about that, purely because, like, the only resource you're gaining from that is a Power Stone. Which, if you've got her LD already anyway. So therefore, like, Power Stones are important, but you need a lot more than a dupe from a Lenna LD to deal with FR weapons. But if that gives you a reason to want to not feel bad about a pull, absolutely go in for it. That's a really good reason. And again, I think everything that we've said here about Lenna is just being replicated by many, many voices. So she just seems really good, and she's not breaking the game in any way. She just does everything she does really well. So now, of course, we come to the big question of the video. Should you be pulling for Lenna and Trey? So the banner, as I said here, it says that we have Lenna and Trey EXLD and just Kaius BT and not Jekt. But I would imagine, given that we have an event that's coming out with this banner, whereas in JP it was just a seasonal event, we will probably see someone's EX pop up on here, I would imagine, just because if there's an event, there's bound to be a Chaos Challenge with it, and they typically release an EX-only character for those purposes. But, that being said, I think Lenna is absolutely fantastic. I adore the character. I have done for a very long time. She's got a major combination of different things that she does. Debuff evasion being, at this point, the icing on the cake when it was realistically her main function back in the day. She's got massive regens, she's got healing, she has huge damage increases, like much bigger than a lot of characters, certainly in combination of HP and bravery damage. And then she does loads of damage herself as well, like thanks to her rework, like being able to do a decent amount of damage with her rapid fire, and then Dragon's Breath dealing a crazy amount of damage that actually doesn't care about Lufenia Plus mechanics because it doesn't rely on your bravery at all. And it's safe because she keeps her bravery when she's done with it. So you could pair her up with somebody like Selfie if you wanted to, and just take advantage of all of those brave gains, or like that she keeps hold, or being able to keep hold of her bravery. There's lots of nice little combinations that she does with all that stuff, and because those buffs only take up 3 slots on her and 1 slot on your party members, it's really easy to pair her up with other buffers as well. So there's a lot of nuance and room to play and just have fun with this character as well. I personally plan to pair her up with, I mean, I know I talk about Vayne a lot on this channel, Shock Horror, and then Kuja as well, but they are both attackers that have auras on them that increase damage for your party. So therefore, they're going to work really well with Lenna and make her damage go up when she's not necessarily using her Dragon's Breath, or they can just keep their own damage up by way of their own auras. And Trey, not a must-have, but at this point, by any means, but he's still a good character. Like, his EX Insta-Break debuff is still great. It's still really useful for a lot of things. I've seen Trey used in very recent Lufenia Pluses. I've seen, like, Trey's just good. Like, he has all these off-turn damage traps, ways in which he can do range damage, lots of different ways the traps trigger as well. And then the LD debuff actually has brave damage up on it as well. So there's a lot to like there. I wouldn't chase Trey at this point, but he's still really good. The one thing I will say about Lenna is that she's not necessarily going to play for everybody's playstyle because she doesn't provide brave gains in any way, despite the fact that she has brave gains in a lot of her kit. She more relies on regens than anything else. So if you're, want to use somebody like Ishtola or Maria or Porum or anything like that, then maybe you might want to kind of look at it again. I still think that she works in these parties, but I don't necessarily think that she's necessarily the best character for those parties. And once she runs out of Dragon's Breath, she's kind of stuck in the mud. Like I said, the potency on her attacks, her regular skills aren't the best. Her EX is pretty poor at this point in terms of damage. You're going to need to use it to keep her Princess of Tycoon buff up, but that's that. And Windsdrake Ward does run out, so if you're using turn-hogging characters, be wary of that as well. She gets more uses of it now, though, so that's not quite as bad as it used to be. It lasts for a decent amount of time, but not so much that you don't need to refresh it, if that makes sense. So as long as you're keeping on top of things, you can just throw out all the Dragon Breaths you want to try and get a quick finish. Or if you want to, you can pace yourself a little more, because they don't run out, they don't have a time period on them, and Giant's Drink lasts for 12 turns, so you've got a long period of time, but once she runs out of Dragon's Breaths, she can be a little bit of a sitting duck. But I think all that said, I think Lenna is a fantastic pull, and she is not a waste of anyone's resources no matter how much they spend on her. So that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching. As I said, I love Lenna. I unabashedly love her. I can't wait to get her in my roster. I can't wait to play with her. I think she's fantastic. I feel a bit sorry for Vanille fans that she seems to have just been skipped over. My theory currently is that she'll get swapped for the banner that had Balthea in it, that was released alongside Jigrin. So maybe she'll come out with Yuffie LD on that instead of the Balthea that we got early. So who knows? Not quite sure what's happening with that. But hopefully we'll see Vanille soon for those who really want her. But if we get Lenna on Friday, I'll be exceptionally happy because she is one of my favourites. Thank you again. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notification of future videos I might be making. And I shall see you in the next one. So thank you all very much, everyone. And I'll see you then. Take care.